Hello guys, today's topic is about the perimeter and the area of triangles, okay? Let's move to the first slide about the area of a triangle, okay? So we can say any triangle can be seen as a half of the parallelogram, okay? So for example, like here, we can draw a total parallelogram, okay? Like this way. Okay, so we can say here, the area of the parallelogram is the base times height, right? That is b times h, right? And here, because it's a half of a parallelogram, we can say the area of a triangle is a half times the height times the base, okay? Then we can written as a equals to a half times base times the perpendicular height, okay? That is it. And then we can say for the right angle triangles, we can say here, the height is h right here as one side of the right triangle, okay? Another side is the base, okay? So it's also a right angle side. So the area here can be equals to a half times base times height, okay? Also the same method as before, okay? And for the slant height, maybe here, please remember that using height as this way. So when you consider this as a base, so now you can draw in an opposite point and draw a perpendicular line right here, okay? So that is a height, okay? So the area here is height times base times a half, okay? And if you want to calculate in another method, so please regard it this side as a base, that is S, and then from the point or from the turning point, draw a perpendicular line right here, okay? And this is a perpendicular field H, okay? That is it. So we can say here that maybe we can consider as the area can equals to a half times base times height, also can be considered as a half times the A, and then times the base S, okay? So you can find different base have different height, okay? So if you just consider like here, the base C as our base, we can say that the opposite point is this point, okay? It's a purple dot, okay? And then you can like draw a perpendicular line from the purple cross, and here that is a new height, okay? HC, okay? That is it. So also can be written as a half times C times HC, okay? That is how we can calculate the area right here. And then we can say we can use in sine function to represent for it, okay? So here we have a and b, okay? So don't worry about this. We haven't learned about sine function, but now I just introduced for you, okay? So here we can say the area equals to a half times a times b is two side, and then times the angle theta, okay? So that is area equals to a half times ab times sine theta, okay? That is it, okay? And here are some deliberate practice for you. Here are some four following answers, okay? So for first problem, find the area of triangle with a base of 12 centimeter and the height of 5 centimeter, okay? So here we can set area equals to a half times height times base, right? So we can set the value here is area equals to half times the base is 12 centimeter and then times the height is 5 centimeter, right? So the final answer equals to 30 times a half, sorry, 60 times a half equals to 30 centimeters square, right? That is for first problem. And for second problem, a right angle triangle has a side 6 centimeter, 8 centimeter, and 10 centimeter, right? And we have to calculate its area, okay? So here we can set maybe the base here is 6 and 8, and the hypotenuse here is 10, okay? So we can set here the area equals to half times base 8 times the height 6. So the final value here equals to 24, okay? So the area here equals to 24 centimeters square, okay? And then for a third problem is that an equilateral triangle has a side of 6 centimeter and call it the perpendicular height, okay? So like here we said this is an equilateral triangle and each side is 6 centimeter and we can draw perpendicular line right here, okay? So then you can just try to sketch it and trying to use a meter rule to measure it, okay? Because here we haven't learned about the trigonometry. So here we can say this side equals to 3 times square root 3, okay? You don't need to understand why it is, okay? And then you can calculate the area right here, okay? That is a half times the base 6 times the height 3 times square root 3, okay? That is area here equals to 9 times square root 3, okay? And for the fourth problem, calculate the area of the triangle with side 7 centimeter and 10 centimeter and an included angle of 30 degree, okay? So here we can set the side here is 7 centimeter and 10 centimeter, okay? So we can set the area here equals to half times base times height, another side, then times the sine 30 degree, okay? That is it. So you don't need to understand the trigonometry, but you can remember the formula how to use here, okay? So that means the area, okay? Two side and the angle between them, okay? So that times sine 30 degree, okay? So final answer can be considered as like 35 over 2 as our final answer. That is problem 4, okay? So that's what today's our lesson. I hope you can truly understanding for how to calculate the area of triangles, okay? So mostly you have to remember that the base times height times the half equals to the real areas for the triangles, okay? So that's what today's our lesson. See you next time. Bye.